Whenever the developers add something to Clash of Clans, it's the final version. It's been polished, perfected, it's ready to go. But behind the scenes, it's not as simple as making it and adding it in the next update. There's brainstorming, prototyping, playtesting. But sometimes some things don't work out and cool ideas can get thrown away. So today, I'm going to be going over 10 of these cool ideas, mostly troops, that were almost added to Clash of Clans, but didn't quite make the cut.
Let's do this.
Elixir Goblin. Every troop goes through some crazy iterations before we get to the final version. And the Yeti is no different, but there is one version of the Yeti that is so far from what it became, the Elixir Goblin. Basically, this monster looking thing had a big hammer, and it gained strength and size as it destroyed buildings. And just like a lumberjack, it would drop a rage spell after it was killed, presumably from what was in that hammer. It kind of looks like it's holding elixir. Unfortunately for this troop, the team thought that the mechanic was far too complex for the average player, and not only that, because the troop only grew and got stronger as it destroyed buildings. If your army had a lot of troops and the monster didn't get to destroy any buildings himself, it would rarely ever do the thing it was supposed to. So it never made it out of testing stages. Eventually it evolved into completely different troops, like this goblin looking fella who swung a weapon that had elixir spirits in it. Honestly, it looks pretty cool. Or this more familiar looking giant minion that you've probably seen before, originally prototyped for a Clash Royale card, but also a version of the Yeti in its early stages. Eventually, all of this would lead to the Yeti that we know of today. Very, very cool. Resurrection spell. In an interview with Judah Sloth and Echo Gaming in late 2018, Darian explained that while testing new spells, they were experimenting with some temporary or permanent spells that they could add to the game. The first one was a mortality spell. Nothing was shared other than that. However, with a name like that, one can only assume it would kill something. Maybe it would instantly take out the clan castle troops or insta-destroy certain buildings. Then there was the resurrection spell, a spell that would bring troops back to life. It would deploy as a ring, and whatever troops died there would come back to life for a few seconds to do a little more damage and then die again. Perhaps this would have been utilizing the tombstones and give them a purpose in the game. But as Darian explained, these spells turned out to be way too powerful, besides one spell that they had also been working on at the same time, the bat spell, which he explained originally targeted any building and not just defenses. Pretty cool stuff. It would have been interesting to see that mortality or resurrect spell, and maybe in the future we could see it for some Halloween event. Barbarian Chariot. There's not much information on this, but pretty much it was a flying air unit that shot Tesla bolts, specifically a barbarian Viking that flew on a cloud, and as he flew he would throw those bolts. It's unknown what he targeted, as that was never really discussed on the live stream that I saw, but later on more concepts were made for this troop. He got a sweet looking chariot, and the barbarian evolved more into like a Viking or a strongman. He also acquired a cool looking staff, or whatever that is. Pretty cool concept. It's unfortunate we never got to see anything like it. Rocketeer. This is the only unconfirmed troop we're going to be talking about in this video. However, I thought it'd be an interesting look because it's pretty clear this was tested at some point, but eventually got scrapped. A lot of you may remember this fellow from 2016. No content creator could hold back on making a video about a leaked troop, including myself. Basically, it was found in the game files alongside the bowler in March 2016. It appeared to be a skeleton riding a rocket-looking jetpack. Now, there was some gameplay that leakers put together. However, that's about it. Leakers put together. It wasn't final gameplay or anything. I believe that was just another troop using the Rocketeer model. To this day, we don't know for sure what the troop was supposed to do. It was speculated to be a new Dark Elixir troop because there was also a new Dark Barracks found in the game files. The barracks had this metal looking ball on it with a bit of a ledge, something that the Dark Barracks did not have at any level at the time. But then the Bowler came out with a different looking Dark Barracks design, and that was the end of the Rocketeer. No Rocketeer! But many years later in 2021, the Dragon Rider would come out with a similar looking skeleton, so there's a possibility they took inspiration, or maybe that's the Rocketeer in another form. But yeah, as far as we know, the Rocketeer was a scrapped card. Elixir Monster. The Elixir Monster has a lengthy history of being teased and tested long before it came out in any Supercell game. The first time it was shown was in this picture posted on April 1st, 2017 of a new game mode for Clash Royale. Obviously, April 1st, April Fools. It was all a joke, it was nothing serious. But as you can see, half of the Elixir Monster can be seen. The Elixir Monster would not come out at that time, but several years later during an AMA on Reddit, it was confirmed that in 2018 during the development of Town Hall 12, this Elixir Monster was prototyped. So basically, there was this massive Elixir Monster, and as defenses attacked it, it split into smaller and smaller pieces. And those small pieces would attack buildings. An alternative version of this was tested as well, of a golem that broke into tiny hog riders. Not the most ridiculous thing I've heard. Eventually though, the concepts evolved into something else entirely. However, in 2019, the concept was revisited for a Clash Royale card that did the exact same thing, the Elixir Golem. Traps in walls. Walls have pretty much stayed the exact same since the game's launch. They have a lot of HP, and that's pretty much it. They don't have much going for them besides looking pretty badass and costing a fortune. However, during the development of Town Hall 13, it was confirmed that the developers were messing around with adding something more to the walls. When asked if we'd ever see additional utility added to the walls in the future during an AMA, the response indicated that they tried adding exploding traps in them. I'm not sure if that means the walls had bombs on them that would go off when enemies got near it, or maybe it was a rigged wall that exploded when destroyed. I can't be too sure, but it seems it didn't work out anyway because it was way too frustrating for players when they were attacked. I'm not sure if that's a typo or not, but that would mean it was frustrating for the defender, which is quite interesting to think about. It makes sense though that the developers would try something like that, because for years the community has made concepts around different additions for walls, like traps, even whole ass structures. But for the time being, walls are just gonna have to be walls for now. Goblin Glider. The Goblin Glider is yet another troop that was tested as a new Town Hall 12 troop. It was a goblin in, well, a glider. Basically, the goblins would fly in on gliders and targeted storages. In 2018, this would have been the second troop that prioritized storages. This was before the sneaky goblin. However, it seemed this wasn't interesting enough as a new troop for a massive update like Town Hall 12, and it instead inspired the Hog Glider for the builder base a year later. However, the Hog Glider is pretty different. It crashes into defenses and drops a Hog Rider. It's cool to see that the glider mechanic was kept though. There is a small reference to the Goblin Glider in the game. In the summer scenery, you can see a goblin near the glider poke out with aviator gear. Pretty cool Easter egg. Cut Mashup Troops. Now, this video wouldn't feel complete if I didn't include all of the Mashup Troops that we know didn't make it during the Halloween season of 2023. As you know, we got the Barcher, Witch Golem, Lavaloon, and Hog Wizard. But of course, there were way more that were tested, and these four just happen to be the best ones. The ones that made the cut, Like the Witch Yeti, Inferno Wizard, Lava Yeti, Barb Healer, that baby dragon healer. Why does that look so cursed? Anyways, yeah, there's way more of these that I'll be showing on screen here. I don't think I need to go into detail on all of them. I think it's just cool to see what we could have got as a mashup troop. Perhaps next year they'll reintroduce some of these scrapped ideas. Flying Crusher Machine. During the development of the Bowler Base 2.0, there were a lot of ideas floating around. One of my favorites was the early concepts of the Electro Fire Wizard. There's some pretty neat stuff in there, like this skeleton. He looks pretty badass. However, there's one thing that caught my eye the most in this behind the scenes video, which is just how different the battlecopter could have been. Just how different? Well, an entirely different machine. Not even a battlecopter at that point. There are a lot of early sketches, like on wheels or a healing copter, whatever, but I noticed that there were tons of sketches of a flying crusher machine type thing. One of them is called the Crush Air, and it's basically a crusher with a seat. Right here in these two concepts, there's a bit more supporting the crusher, a balloon, propellers. You can see down here there was like plans to have it bounce back, have like a jump spell ability on the boulder. Like I said, there were more ideas other than the flying crusher idea, but it seems the crusher was played around with a lot based on how many sketches there were, so we could have got a flying crusher machine. It would have been cool to see, but in the end, I think the copter is pretty cool and more versatile. You know, we have a ground melee troop, and then we have a flying range shooter. It makes sense. Flare spell. Another spell that was tested at some point was a flare spell. I left it toward the end of the video because I mentioned it a couple times recently, but basically this spell worked like it does in Boom Beach. If you play Boom Beach, you know there is a flare spell, and basically what that does is tells your troops where to go. You drop it and they go to the flare. That way you have more control of your army, and it would have worked the same way in Clash of Clans. The community had requested something like this many times, so that's probably where the idea came from. But the reality was, Clash of Clans is not Boom Beach. Something that works and makes sense in Boom Beach doesn't mean it'll carry over to Clash of Clans that easily. Properly learning how to control your troops is part of the learning experience in Clash. So they took that idea, and somewhere down the road it became the invisibility spell, which helps you control your troops by telling them where not to go. It's not exactly the flare that we could have got, but for a game like Clash of Clans, I think they made the right decision. So yeah, that's everything I could find that wasn't an obvious iteration of something we already have. Trust me, there's a lot of that. Like I said, the developers rarely ever talk about something they play tested and didn't add. I'm sure there are hundreds of things, especially for an 11-year-old game, but I guess we'll never know, eh? As always, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, Havoc Gaming out. Peace!